G'day and welcome to another video. I'm Guardian Oz from Guardian Oz Gaming, and this video is about twin gyroscope cars, and is a gyroscope valid for a car. So this car is after many iterations, and this is what we've come to. I'm using electric motors for the gyroscopes because a gas engine, when you take off the power, allows things to free spin, and what happens is the gyroscopes just keep on spinning and they don't stop. So that's why we're using electric engines. So when we're getting the engines configured, this is what I found is the gyroscopes impart energy to the car and will make it move. So you can see on the ground there. So if we switch on the second one, you'll see that we're creeping out of position as we're powering along. Now with the gyroscope, the power of the engines are adjustable, so we can see there we're creeping just past where we were, and that's going back the other way. So it's now a matter of what trim is as close as you want to get a best behavior out of the vehicle. So that's my sweet spot for these two gyroscopes. At the moment, the vehicle has the center gimbal universal joint just locked solid with using a controller, so there is still movement in those bearings, as you can see with the movement here in the suspension. And just for distance wise, this is the first packing station that you come to. That's the workshop is just over there, so you can imagine a line from the workshop to this packing station. The other packing station is a dead straight run down the road, so you'll see that come up in the lighting. Now with the vehicle and the gyroscope on, the behaviour I see go over jumps and lumps in the road and all that sort of stuff is it keeps the car flat and it slows down the angle changes for those sort of things. So when we hit a bump or go over a jump, the actual imparted out of control part is reduced with the universal joint running. So I've just come off the road. The whole point was to show you that it's more stable. I think it's me being a little bit tired this morning, not quite as quick as I need to be on the adjustment for the steering. Is the gyroscope a viable option for a car? And I'll say it in this way, from a conclusion point of view, I would say yes, but not in all circumstance. So when you're hitting a jump or a lump in the road or any of those sort of things, the recovery of the vehicle after that imparted energy from a jump or a bump is quite good. Now here, this bit of road is dead flat, it's dead smooth, there's no potholes, there's no anything in it, and we can get the vehicle tracking really well, really straight, really even, and very little chassis movement. I'll skim through here because you can see there we've got a big lump that I don't want to crash through. However, when I'm trying to turn, the gyroscopes are trying to keep the car stable, so turning becomes a little bit more challenging. So what I'm trying to do is get us a nice clean run over this lump, and you can see there the car is really flat, really even. The jump was very controlled, and imparted really well. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly undo the universal joint. I'll do another quick run down and back, so you can see that run was really fast. So we're actually traveling between the two packing stations. I don't know how long it takes on your world and on your vehicles. I'm not making any comment about others. I'm just making comment about, is a gyroscope a viable option for your car? Now we're using batteries, so that's actually from a resources point of view, it is aggressive use of resources because we're spinning up two electric engines and we're trying to keep that gyroscope running hard. From a fuel economy point of view, I haven't checked the gas engine fuel. Are we using more with it on or off? This is more about the behaviour of the car. You can see there we stayed flat and level over over that lump. I can't get the jump here. So you can. So what we'll do is we'll compare a non-gyroscope run straight away after this. So this is with that gyroscope free. So it's where we're using the suspension. The suspension needs to be set fairly hard to get the input back into the vehicle. So I actually not have as much input from the gyroscope as when we had it on locked on. So this is just a no power turn. Let's see if we can get past this hay box. Don't know why they're running across. Oh, probably chasing a cow. So trying to get back into straightened up on this part. So at the moment I'm having trouble turning. So this is where the gyroscope has some challenges. So from a scrap mechanic point of view, I'm really impressed by the fact that we can get a measurable change through a gyroscope. So it's actually got some pretty clever mathematics and that sort of stuff. But here on this run, it's actually a little bit more challenging to drive the vehicle. So see if I can get a good jump over that. So this is the free gyroscope, so it's definitely much harder to drive the vehicle. So from a conclusion point of view, and right at the start of my video as an introduction, is it viable? Yeah, and you can see there we just got a scrap mechanic glitch where the suspension has jumped through. So in a gimbal mode, it's prone to play up and cause more issues. So the best configuration is with the all the bearings locked off with like a controller. So we could probably take 2 blocks out of the height of the vehicle and we can get rid of all this suspension piece. So we could actually get this down to just 2 blocks of spinning blocks underneath your chassis. So that's the conclusion on running the gyroscopes. I actually have a second vehicle. So this one's actually got a wishbone configuration. The vehicles are so this one's configured the same way. Electric engines on the gyroscopes. Again, this one doesn't like being free gimbaled as well. And they need to stay apart from each other when the gimbals are free. So when the gimbals are locked, these vehicles can park right next to each other and have no problem. But from a scrap mechanic lag point of view, as soon as those gimbals are freed up with the bearings not locked off, they lag each other out. So that's a point of note if anyone's playing with these. And then the other thing is, don't just if I strip my wheels off and just let the chassis and the gyroscopes hit the ground, that's a big lag problem as well. But both of these vehicles are now so much fun to drive. I'm almost going to leave. I'm going to leave them set up for driving around. So what I'll do is just lock off this one. We've already made the commentary about free makes a lot of problems. So we'll just blast along. Why am I not moving? Everything's all set up. Why am I not moving? Had the fingers in the wrong spot on the keyboard. Okay, so we'll just get ourselves lined up for this bit of road. Bit of lag there as we went past the other car. Not too bad. Oh, I don't have the gyroscopes running, just for you guys, so get the gyroscopes up and running. Alright, get myself squared away. Alright, yeah, so I think I find the gyroscopes really good fun to drive, especially going over jumps and some odd terrain and that sort of stuff. The vehicles don't toss around anywhere near as much with the gyroscopes on. However, it does make steering control a bit more challenging, but once you get yourself squared up for a straightaway or any of that sort of stuff, it's quite good. Sorry about the steering today. I was doing some runs yesterday afternoon with the vehicles, just getting them dialed in, getting them tuned up. So just for remembering, this car has the same engine layout as the other one. We're running a gas engine on full at the front, and the gas engine at the rear is one step removed. So we actually get pretty good launch. We get a bit of wheel spin when we take off, and then we're back down to just travelling along really fast. So you can see here, this is gorgeously fast, smooth road, and we're tracking along really well. Oh, didn't make it past. Got to step in the wires. Oh, and we've broken our wishbones. I'll give everyone a look at the wishbone suspension. This is my personal mix of wishbone suspension that I've seen. It works pretty good, doesn't lag out very often. So there you go, you can see, oh, that was giving you a jump without the gyroscope running. I just realised we had it on the lift. The reason why we're having a little bit of trouble turning that while we're on the road is I'm holding the power down on the gas engines, like absolutely flat out, without backing off. So when it looks like we're out of control, we're running at full power, like no lift off on the steering on the power at all, just trying to blast through. So vehicle configured for maximum speed on gas engines runs pretty good. So yeah, I'll get back down here, just do a quick turnaround, won't do the full run on the straight. Let's try and get that second jump done. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed looking at this car. It's crazy. Is it viable for survival? Oh yeah, it's fun to drive. It just, like, this run is between the two packing stations, so I don't know how long it takes you to get between your two packing stations, but in this particular map and world, we can get around really quick. This particular seed has some crazy hills like this, but it also has some ridiculously long straight roads, which is just so much fun to blast along. And yeah, I did a scout out of my map, and I only used like 40 fuel. So yeah, I'll clip in the rest of my my captures, bit of the building for the vehicles. I'll just do a quick highlight of the suspension while I'm thinking about it. So the suspension has this single U of the narrow pipe, which then connects into the suspension. So when you're looking at all of the bearings together, the bearings are all in a flat plane, so they all are all lined up with each other because they're on the same flat plane. And then when you look down through the suspension, that bearing and the one immediately next to it are on the opposite plane. So this is the bearing that makes the suspension work, and this one works because I'm not doing any of the adjusters and the adjustable suspension, and that just has a single fixed position for the suspension piece itself. And then the rest of it is just to get a steering and a wheel out from the wishbone. So on the back, without any steering works, you can see that the tyre is right in next to the frame. Now this is one block high, one block in the middle, so it's actually 3 blocks high, and that gives you a more stable outer line when the suspension moves. So and the idea of a wishbone like this is that when this is parallel to the car all the time, so when they move, it moves like a parallelogram, and this stays level with the car. And the reason why that's important is the tyre stays flat. So if the front tyre parallel with the vehicle, it stays flat. So if you had any of these bars changing length, then the tyre gets a camber on it, and an angle to the road, which is different, which means it's not flat, which means you lose traction because you've got less tyre on the road. And Scrap Mechanic does do that, so that's a behaviour of the steering and that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's the features of the car. I'll clip in the build video. So if you want to cut off the video here and just finish, we're all good. and then the rest of the video now will be the build process of and the testing process of getting the cars dialed in, leveled, you know, and how they were built. So yeah, so the gyroscope, when you're building it, this white paint is a center line, and then you go 2, 2, 2, 2, and then we're back to the other way 2, and then the center line for the ribs. So that's how to get the center, the circular-ish build, and then you obviously need a gap between everything so they can spin and not bump the framework of your car when you're spinning up your gyroscope. Yeah, thanks. I'll see you guys on the next one. In my previous video, I got comments to talk about doing a dual, a twin gyroscope. So basically, the blue and the red's actually welded to the vehicle at the moment. I'll undo that once I've got the arrangement set up. But what I've been doing is just setting the vehicles up for symmetry. I spotted that the my normal suspension car, this one here that we're looking at, was one block too high, so I don't think it was a fair test in that the vehicles weren't symmetrical in height and in width. So I've actually just been repositioning the tyres to make sure they're even, so that what we have then is a more valid testing. Some things I have noticed is this, in creating a wishbone, the wheels have come forward in that particular build, and the metal pipe that a wishbone is made from is generally has a weight of 2, so it actually can be a fairly heavy block to use on a car, especially when we have a fair bit of it. So basically what I've been doing is just going through the process of creating the symmetry of the vehicles. I'll strip down one of the wishbones to give you guys a quick look at how to do that one, because this particular wishbone is a combination of Khan's gaming wishbone. He's got one that works pretty good with no glitching, and this one doesn't glitch either, because we've actually got a completely stationary, static bar. It's hard attached to the vehicle. The ones that have the adjustable bars and stuff where they can push the suspension down to give the vehicle more lift, they're prone to create some kind of they create more lag because they're not symmetrical, and they create more problems. So you can see you've got such a huge number of bearings that you start to push into the lag limits. So, but this isn't about the suspension, it's about the gyroscopes. So I'm trying to make the vehicles as even as possible, and I'll play around with the weight to make sure that the this suspension one, the straight suspension vehicle, is comparable. But I don't think it's going to make much difference to us because the mass of the gyroscopes are now quite big. I've made them out of metal instead of timber, so we should have a good indicator of the inertia forces that scrap mechanic creates, which I think is absolutely fantastic that they do actually have the gyroscopic action in the scrap mechanic build. So next video, these things should look pretty similar, and we'll be ready for testing again. Catch you guys later. Hey, and welcome to the Gyroscope Mark II testing video. So what we've got is we've got 2 gyroscope wheels that can spin. They're actually on a gimbal in the middle there. We'll actually lock this gimbal with a controller, and then the suspension pieces are set so they can move around as well. Actually, I'll drop this one. I'll drop this one off the lift. Impromptu script change. So on this one, I haven't locked it, so you can see the gimbals actually goes all over the place, and the 2 parts can spin independently of each other. And you can see there it levels out fairly quickly and fairly nicely. They do have suspension. At the moment, I've just got them all set to 1 until we work out what we're going to do. So for the first testing, I want to just dial in the vehicles with the extra mats that we've added now, so we'll go through that. And one thing, this car has a fairly basic wishbone suspension, which has probably been seen on a lot of videos. But what I've done here on this particular layout, I'll probably undo it to just show you the difference, is this suspension piece is fixed at the top, and it comes down and it goes through this U of 2 different suspension pieces, and then the suspension off to the side where this T is the one that's rotational and works with the arm. So from a behavior perspective, what we see is it behaves exactly like suspension. It absorbs the shock and returns. But the two bearings that are pointing horizontal, so out of the arrangements, you can see all these are in a flat plane, except for the bottom two, which are in the other direction. And what that gives us is a little bit of shock absorber and a little bit of movement. The bearings have a sloppiness to them, and that's translated back through the bar. And that's how this one's configured. In my previous video, I was talking about suspension tuning. So you saw how well that vehicle did a return. I just realised that it looks a bit funny on the ground. You saw how this vehicle returned to stationary once it settled into the suspension. So what I'll do is I'm going to go and get these cars travelling fast. They've got the engine set to full for the front wheels and 2 spokes off full for the rear, just to give us more stability. I'll trim out the suspension to get the vehicles travelling correctly. The wheelbase is exactly the same. From my previous video, the wishbone suspension pushed out the tyre at the front one more block than I expected, just from positioning. So I've put that back into the cars all the way through. So the rear tyres line up, and this straight suspension vehicle has the same wheelbase as well. So from a comparison point of view, they've got exactly the same gyroscope, exactly the same layout, exactly the same number of bearings and how the universal joints are made. So yeah, we should have a relatively good test of the gyroscope. So I'll get these vehicles up, tested, running nice and smooth and fast, and from there we'll then work out whether or not the gyroscope affects us. And one of the things that's come to my mind is potentially putting the gyroscopes on the accelerator. So when we're traveling fast and flat out with our foot hard on the gas, these can spin up really good, but when we slow down for a corner, they can lose some of their momentum and allow us to turn. So that's a potential test for us as well. See you guys in a little while when we're ready to do some straight line running. G'day, I've just locked off the gimbal bearings with the controller. So just from the previous video, I've got the steering set to slow here, and I've got a fairly wide angle, so I've got about the 55 degrees in this instance. The engines, the rear engine's set to 2 stops below full, and the main gas engine at the front is set to full. And with the gyroscope loose, so not powered but the gimbal locked, and the actual gyroscope weight itself loose so it could rotate as you turned your car, it still was imparting some energy into the car and making it veer. So just getting on our straight test road, you can see we're travelling along pretty good. Very minimal steering inputs needed, so with this mass and suspension layout's pretty good. So you can see there we're bouncing around a little bit, but the car's correcting fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some more blocks over this pit so we can get a fast run all the way down to the other packing station. So it gives you an idea of how straight this road is. Falling down the holes because I'm not paying attention. So the straightaway that we have goes from one packing station to the other. I haven't really shown the corresponding direction in the other way. So the packing station is down the bottom of the hill there and travels all the way out to the other one in one straight line. So just give you guys an idea of how fast or how far the road is between the packing stations is what we're going with. So it's a predictable measurement for anybody else who wants to do an experiment similar to say yes or no, or verify what I'm doing is correct or not. Scientific what do they call it? Scientific principle says, you know, you have a theory and then you go and test it, but you test it lots and lots and lots to see if there's anything that's variables outside of what you're testing. This is scrap mechanic. I'm a person. I'm going to make mistakes, so it's not about that. It's just to see, you know, can he make a vehicle that takes advantage of a gyroscope or not? Yeah, and I'll get into the details of what we've done with that in the next little bit. So hang on a sec. I've got to patch up this hole so we can get a nice good straight run down the down this this runway. Thanks.